Pulp MX Network production.
Bringing you a cheeky Brit and an American YouTube racing sensation weekly. It's the LVK More Than Moto podcast with your hosts, Phillips and Kellen Brauer.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Leatt LVK More Than Moto podcast. I am Kellen Brauer, joined by Phillips, and we have seen Anaheim 1 come and go behind us. Wild evening of racing, and of course, some injury news, some updates we'll give you guys here today as well. Some good news on that front, obviously, with what we saw in the 450 main event. But yeah, Big Lou, A1 gone. What happened? I feel like this just flashed through my brain this weekend. I can't even believe we're already on to San Diego and round one's behind us.
Yeah, in a weird way, I kind of feel like Anaheim 1 hasn't happened. I think that's because I haven't had time to process it. I was just watching it on TV again before we started recording, and it felt odd to think that I was watching Anaheim 1. But it's been and gone. We have winners, we have losers, we have disasters, we have success stories, and going to be good to break it all down.
Well, as Steve said probably 100 times throughout the day, we were just here. It feels like A125 was literally yesterday, and here we are at A126. We'll talk about the format and the flow and everything throughout the day, but I feel like we got to the main events, and I was like, really, we're already here? Kind of feeling like I can't believe they're about to go for round one right now. But how did you feel Saturday evening and through the rest of the evening?
Yeah, the day went quick. I think it always does, though. I did wonder if that was a little bit to do with the shortened practice schedule, obviously losing FP, but I don't think that had anything to do with it at all. I think by the time, the thing is, you kind of hang around, and then once the opening ceremonies start, you blink and it's over, because it's very go, go, go. So I think that's always the feeling. I know Steve complains a lot about how we got there too early, but I didn't feel like that at all. I could have quite easily filled another 3 or 4 hours at the track if we'd had it.
Oh, I agree. And honestly, I think we talked about this on the post show with Steve and JT, but it kind of is nice now that we almost have this, specific schedule that is kind of condensed into this format, because even when we do have day races on the East Coast, it won't feel ridiculously early. And then when we have late races on the East Coast, I guess it may drag on in the morning and stuff, but it'll kind of feel the same. I feel like this is a good schedule.
Yeah, I think it always feels the same anyway. I said this to Kevin Morans after the race. I feel like Supercross is some sort of jet lag experience where the main event goes off and your body clock just automatically sets to 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever. Because I left the track and went for food at 9 p.m., I want to say. I felt as though it was midnight. And I think that was just because my mind went, it's the end of the Supercross, we've done interviews, it must be balls early in the morning. It was quite odd to look at the time and realise that it was a reasonable hour. But yeah, I just tried to find a schedule for San Diego, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, we're just doing exactly the same setup.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I went and got food at 8:30, and I was back at my house by a little after 10, and everyone was already asleep and everything like that. And I think maybe because of that sentiment, it felt like 1 a.m., and then you look at the clock and be like, oh, in an old format, the mains would have just ended, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I guess the plus side is everybody gets to go home early. The downside is that, and we'll talk about this later, it just felt like there wasn't as much hype, maybe, going into the night show, and then by the time we got to the main event, it was good.
Yeah, but that's been true for so many years now that opening ceremonies are in daylight. Well, this was only an hour earlier than last year's Anaheim 1 opening ceremonies.
Yeah, but the year before that was still a 7 a.m. start time.
Yes, that's what I mean. We haven't had, this is just normal now for Anaheim 1. This doesn't feel like a regular or a straying from the norm. This is just what you get. And it is still nice that the main events are dark, that helps. Because I do think that Supercross doesn't come across on TV as well when it's blue skies and sunshine. I think that's been true ever since we introduced the day races. But the main events still carry that flair with it being dark and whatnot.
Yeah, we're not going to get into a whole big topic about this, but obviously the update with Justin Barcia that came out Sunday was a massive sigh of relief all across the board. For those that haven't heard it yet, basically he just has a small fracture on one of his wings on his vertebrae on his back. Otherwise, a concussion, obviously, and mostly okay, just really sore, which is unbelievable when you look at how that crash unfolded and everything with that. Obviously, Malcolm Stewart also got landed on. He had a dislocated shoulder from that. So both of them will miss some time, but the alternate for both of them could have been insanely worse. And I just breathed a huge sigh of relief when I saw it, particularly Justin was okay.
Yeah, I watched Justin's video and kind of just didn't believe it. Had to keep checking if it was AI. Obviously, that's the way of the world now, and I still can't quite comprehend how he is quote-unquote fine. It makes absolutely no sense. Credit, I guess, to our technical sponsor, or our protective wear sponsor, I should say, Alpinestars, because he was wearing the airbag, and the rumour I heard was that it deployed before impact, which would make sense because his body did fling a little bit, as we've seen. But I know a lot of people have said, well, he landed more on his head and his neck, but I have to believe, without a shadow of doubt, that Tech Air MX was instrumental in him being relatively okay.
Yeah, I mean, from every angle that you can kind of see, like, there's not really any that are close. There is one that's a little bit close up, but it's really blurry. It does kind of look as though he hits Malcolm, lurches forward, and in that process of doing the nosedive, he gets bigger. What that might be, it could just be the camera angle or the way his body is positioned, but he's wearing the Tech Air, and you would hope that that's why it deployed. He did kind of land straight to his head, but rolled onto his back at the same time. I don't know, like, just in general, the way that he crashed and how long he was out for, like you said, I watched that video and almost couldn't believe it. He walked out of the hospital the next day, like, just unbelievable.
I think that does contribute to the feeling we said off the top, where it's like Anaheim 1 doesn't feel like it's happened. And I think that's because the mood turned quite somber. So maybe the full Anaheim 1 experience was rightfully not fulfilled just because of that incident. Maybe that's a little bit of it. I don't know. I guess ultimately the hype leaving Angel Stadium isn't around the racing as it is every other year. That is second to this incident, and that has ultimately resulted in maybe just a different feeling amongst fans and the industry this week.
Oh, yeah. I left the stadium that night, and I'd seen plenty of replays by that point, and I wasn't thinking, wow, Eli Tomac looks amazing on that KTM. What happened with Chase and Cooper tonight? Jorge Prado, like all these different things that will be storylines throughout this week. I was literally just thinking, like, God, I hope Justin's okay. And I think that was the sentiment that I carried until I saw that video. So yeah, for basically all that post-race activity and chatter that you would normally be having and be discussing or dissecting the race with friends or in your own mind about it, I was just thinking about Justin. So I can totally agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I think it's without doubt.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the depth of this show. Of course, big thanks to Leatt at Leatt. Protection is in our brand DNA. It started 20 years ago with the groundbreaking Leatt neck brace and continues today with an extensive product offering of protective gear and riding apparel. But what Leatt really stands for is inspiring confidence and ensuring safety with every ride. Be sure to visit Leatt.com to check out all their 2026 line of gear. Of course, we saw the Twisted Tea Suzuki of Colt Nichols in his Leatt kit this weekend. Justin Hill back behind the gate, going 4 wide through the first rhythm section of the heat race. That has made the rounds on social media today in his Leatt gear. I like Nichols stuff. I thought that was a really clean look, that kind of like blue into the faded white, and then the helmet looked good with it. But yeah, Leatt crushing it.
Yeah, Leatt are onto a winner with Colt anyway, because let's be honest, of all the manufacturers, I think it's probably easiest to make gear look good on a Suzuki, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like more Suzuki is a manufacturer where the most colours play well with the bike. So, onto another winner there.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a clean kit. I don't know about lit kit, but it was very good. Okay, let's get into our first topic, and it was one that I just kind of briefly brought up there a second ago. Cooper Webb and Chase Sexton leave this opening round 7th and 8th. Many people picked them to be 1A, 1B going into this championship. Obviously, they're 1-2 in points last year. Now, the panic button is still, I think, deep in the drawer for everybody. There's, every chance that they rebound quickly this week, but both had a myriad of issues, mistakes, mental errors, whatever you want to call them, throughout the evening. So I'll ask you this first, Big Lou. Which of those two riders should be most frustrated with how A1 went?
Well, frustrated is different to panicked, of course. So if you want to go frustrated, I would think Coop would be, because A, leading before the red flag, B, probably should have been on the podium in the restart without the Hunter crash, and then the heat crash maybe set him back a little bit as far as gate pick goes as well. So maybe that would have helped him out on the restart. Obviously, he whole shot the first main, so it wasn't that bad. But frustrated, I think Coop, because it was all there, and we know how good Coop is. He's on his beloved 2025. So I would think that the frustration would have been there on Coop's side more than Chase's. Chase's side probably would have been more of a what the fuck, or that sort of attitude rather than just frustration, you know?
Well, on the flip side of that, and I agree with you about, Coop, and it should have been better. He should have probably got on the podium even after the restart. If he didn't get together with Hunter Lawrence, he was going forward. But Chase Sexton, it is definitely a WTF. He was fastest qualifier. He looked pretty good all day. His heat race was going well until it wasn't. That set him up for a bad gate pick, if you want to say that, in the main event, that attributed to a bad start in the main event, and then a few mistakes in the main event led to a so-so ride. I don't feel like much of the main event at all looked like old Chase or the Chase Sexton we know. So don't you think that would elicit a little bit of frustration as to, like, why is it not better to start?
Well, yeah, but that's what I meant off the top. I think that would more fall under the panic or the panicky sort of attitude. I don't think the Coop would be panicked at all. But yeah, I guess I could be frustrated as well. But wait, what did you say there? You felt that he didn't look like his old self, or he did?
No, I'm saying, like, the version of Chase Sexton that we know, which is he can start anywhere and probably get back to the podium. He started dead last in Detroit last year and got on the box. But he did not get a great start in this main event. He seemed like it took him a while to get going. Had some mistakes, obviously. And then once he was into that group, I thought maybe he would charge through and get into, like, the top 5. So to finish 8th just feels a little bit like, that's kind of odd to me. Like, I thought there was more in the tank there for him. And you could say there's a lot of reasons for that. But I was just, I don't know. I feel like that doesn't seem like a good start to the way it should have been.
Yeah, of course, but I guess in comparison to Detroit, he hit the gate, started last, and then came through. This time he started last and fell and went off the track 4 times. And so I guess when you add in all of the elements, 8th place is somewhat acceptable as a salvage job, especially when you look at Coop being right in front of him. That's really the saving grace here if you're Chase, I think. And again, maybe save some of that frustration. I imagine the picture would look very different if it was Coop, Eli, and Kenny on the podium and Chase is 8th. That's a completely different ball game to dissect. But I guess, yeah, I also was a little bit confused that he didn't come through as much, and he didn't really look like he was hustling through the guys at any point. But then when you consider the 4 off-track excursions, the word again, the frustration he must have felt after the first, second, third little trip, I'd imagine his body language, instead of fight or flight, he just went into, like, salvage and just limp mode, I guess, and just get out of here. I do wonder as well, this is pure speculation because I've not spoken to him about this, but you watch the replay and he was right behind Barsha and Malcolm. Like, if he was a second ahead of himself, he's probably collecting in that. So I can't help but wonder if maybe that factors into all of these little errors, like going off the track 4 times. If maybe that just, he wasn't in it in the main event as much as maybe he would have been otherwise. I don't know.
No, I mean, that's a fair point because, like we mentioned, both of us felt deflated after the Barsha thing and everything that we saw. We just talked about it in his post show. Just felt like it was a different mood around. And Eli Tomac came off the track, got on the box after winning this main event, and the first thing he said is, "Man, I hated to see Justin down like that. That really kind of shook him up a little bit." So you have to account for the human element. Chase was right behind that. He saw it all, got slowed down by it, had to come to a complete stop. So there's certainly some truth to that, I'm sure. How about the flip side of this, though, which is you mentioned the word panic. I don't think I'm there, and I don't think you're there either necessarily. But how much does this affect Chase's mentality moving into next week? Like, are we just, this is a wash, and now San Diego is A1 to him?
Yeah, I spoke to him after the race, and that's pretty much where he's at, which I think is the correct mentality to have. A1 can be weird. it is what it is. Coop was right in front of me. It's by no means a disaster. We're moving on. I think that's the attitude you would want any rider to have in that situation. And I guess the other obnoxiously in our face element that just has to be mentioned is it was the first race on a new bike, so naturally I guess there will be gremlins. Maybe the fastest qualifier and the way that practice went set expectations a little bit too high. I mean, a lot of us called him to potentially win Anaheim 1, so maybe expectations were already high anyway before a wheel had been turned. But this was always going to happen at some point. Even if he won A1, there would have been a race like this with the new bike and team at some point, I would think, before round 6. So it's perhaps not the end of the world that it happened at A1. And again, can't emphasize enough the fact that Coop was right in front of him, and that's a saving grace. Because that to me, that really does change the entire way that you would analyze this.
Yeah, and I think that it would especially help them both if Eli hadn't won this race, because I think that they probably look at him as like the next list of the competitors they're going to have to go up against this year. But I agree with you that they kind of look at each other and say, okay, that's fine. So let's go back to Webb here for just a minute. Are you surprised at all at, like, I don't want to call it brain farts, but certainly the heat race was running into AP the way that he did. He tries to put Hunter wide in a berm, and Hunter's leg gets caught in his foot, so I don't call that a brain fart. But just in general, like the little small mistakes that Webb is usually really good about not having, that's where he eliminates those problem areas. But then he did have them. I don't know, like that seems kind of out of character for Cooper Webb.
Yeah, that's why I say that Webb's ride resonated with me more than Chase's, because ultimately we've seen Chase do this many a time. And honestly, I can't remember a night where Coop was so unlike Coop. Not in speed or potential or any of that, but just as you say, just in those little minor errors. He's normally the guy capitalizing on that, not the guy involved in it. So I don't know what you'd put that down to either. I spoke to a few guys on his team, and the move back to the 25 chassis was seamless. It's not like it opened up a can of worms of now there's more work to do. It was very plug and play with last year, which I guess is what you would expect. So I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it was just him putting emphasis on, I've never won Anaheim 1, I've never defended, so let's start this off right, you know? Or equally, you know, he has trained with Malcolm and Barsha at points, and he did have the lead before the red flag. So maybe those two elements collided to make frustration, emotion, and all of that, and that somewhat got the better of him on the restart. I don't know.
We'll never know, but given the way that it had started in the first race, say the race does go on, Barsha and Mookie don't crash, the way that it was lined up, like, do you think Webb wins that race? Like, again, there's so much race left to go, and there's so many guys that could have got up there and passed him, but I just don't see it personally. Like, I don't see him rising to the occasion at A1 to win it. I think other guys would have got up there and passed him.
Yeah, I will say I don't see it purely because I've never seen it. It's rare to have Webb whole shot and just took off, and Tomac was right there and had nothing for him. Again, when have you ever said that? But in those opening laps, he did seem to have the measure of the guys behind him. Kenny was a little bit buried, so I think he would have been adrift as he was in the second main, and he would have only had to deal with Eli, and who knows how that goes. So maybe, you know? And if that happens, this whole narrative is completely different, because we're not talking about Tomac, we're talking about how Webb is just off to an incredible title defense, and who's going to stop him? He looks so much better than last year. It's funny how just one of those moments, the red flag, just completely changes your perspective and your outlook on a rider.
Yeah, and maybe that's why Coop in the main event, the second main event, had those little mistakes, if you want to call it that, because he was probably pissed off that it should have been going better for him. Like, he executed a start that needed to be done in the main event, and it's hard to do it twice when everyone else gets a second chance to, when you have a bad gate pick, to, you know, push you out wide or whatever it is. So no, very interesting. Between both of them, let's say rolling into San Diego this weekend, one or two, both back on the box this weekend, highly likely, or no?
Yeah, for some reason I feel incredibly confident that this weekend's podium is Tomac, Webb, and Sexton in some order. And I don't know why I feel so confident about that. I just feel like we've seen it time and time again where a rider or riders contenders have shitty Anaheim ones, and then it's right back to business. You know, think RV in 2013, and there's many examples of this. RC, many a time, didn't win A1, but in round 2, here we go. Business has been resumed. So I think that's how it plays out. But I don't know what order, and a Tomac win with Webb and Sexton behind him, although the trophies are nice, it doesn't really change the narrative from Anaheim 1, let's say.
I'll just rely on history here a little bit, but I envision Chase winning this week kind of stupid easily, and then Webb getting like either third or fourth, but maybe not, mixing it up as much, and he's just steady. And then we're spending this pod or other pods next week going, man, what was wrong with Chase at A1? Because this is what we expected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see any of these situations. That's why I'm honestly more excited for San Diego than I was Anaheim, just because now we've had a taste, I have even more questions and even more confusion. So I'm quite intrigued now to see who bounces back, because realistically, I think the only rider who, without doubt, did exactly what we thought he would do at Anaheim 1 is Roczen.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what everyone else brings to the party and what is the norm. Because right now, Roczen aside, I don't know what the norm is in this 450SX field.
Yep, and look, if you go back to San Diego just last year, like Jet was 11th at the opener, Eli 5th, and then they had a incredible battle to win in San Diego. So I think that there's every chance that we get a really good one this weekend. So be fun to watch. Let me tell you guys about Namura. Namura Technologies has been a trusted name in performance engine components for motocross, ATV, UTV, and personal watercraft for over 20 years. From complete rebuilds to high-performance upgrades, Namura delivers precision-engineered parts built to perform under pressure. Their expanding lineup includes cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, engine valves, and cylinder kits, all designed to meet or exceed OEM specifications. Find full product details and application coverage at Namura.com. All right, this topic is very, I feel like Big Lou dependent, because I'm not going to have the insight that you will on this, but it's an interesting one because I feel like this is a bit of a repeating cycle, starting once again as Max Anstey has won the opening round of this championship, won the opener last year, and he led the points the year before that. So what do you say, Big Lou, is the difference maker this year for Max Anstey to consistently be up here the entire stretch of this title fight and take it to the end?
What is the difference, you ask?
Yep.
The West Coast. I've said it year after year, time and time again. As weird as it is to think that Lommel master Max Anstey isn't maybe the most comfortable on the soft and rutty supercross tracks, I don't believe that's ever been the case. Big whoops, big quads, slick takeoffs without foot peg deep ruts. That's where he shines, and I think that consistency across the West Coast series will give him some sustainability. I honestly think that's the difference maker. Because even, you look at last year, Tampa, he was incredible. Well, that was West Coast style, wasn't it? And then Detroit, he was incredible, but that was also hard slick. It started to fall off once we got to Indy and Daytona and whatever else, where we got into the East Coast style tracks. So I think that will be the difference maker. I mean, you even look at this past weekend. The whoops were the smallest they will be all year, you would hope. And in the heat race, he was working Kitchen there. And I would consider Kitchen one of the best guys in the whoops. So that advantage should only be magnified moving forward. And then you look at the triple out of turn 2. Him and Kitchen were the only two doing it. Well, maybe that big line isn't possible on the East Coast because the takeoff has broken down and it's just a double-double, because you have to play it safe. So I think that's where his advantages lie. And I think that will give him a sense of consistency. I mean, even the East-West showdowns this year, I think it's St. Louis and Birmingham and Salt Lake, of course. I would say, with the exception of St. Louis, they're all West Coast sort of dirt. And even St. Louis is an Indy sort of level race. So that would give me more hope. However, the track record is very set in stone and it's very consistent. So not this weekend, because as I said, last year the first 2 rounds were good. But I think if he's still winning and in the mix at Anaheim 2, then the trend has been broken, let's say.
What do you think he, himself, has learned about, the way that these championship fights for him have gone the last 2 or 3 years, starting strong and tailing off? Do you think that he has been able to internalize that and learn something about the way he approaches these races week to week and not put the cart in front of the horse or anything along those lines that he's adapted to and can maybe consistently bring that every week?
Well, I don't know. In the same breath, you could say that the last 2 years weren't really his fault. I mean, he fell out of championship contention with Firepower, now Quadlock, because the bike broke. He had the red plate, bike broke, gone. And then last year, yes, it was trending in the wrong direction, but it wasn't trending in that way long enough for it to be considered a pattern when he broke his leg. And easy for a rider to say this, but he was very positive in Birmingham that was going to be the turnaround and Indy was just a blip. So there isn't exactly a lot of evidence of Anstey himself not carrying this through to the end. So I don't think you can fully pile on him. But I've said it time and time again, I do believe the West Coast is where he can show his skills. And I do think that will help him against Hayden and Levi, because we know Hayden isn't the strongest in the whoops as well. So once we get to A2 in Houston and these whoops get bigger, I've got to think that it'll be a massive advantage for him. And again, that triple, you look at the sector times, it's incredible. Deegan's fastest time in that rhythm lane was 1.1 slower than Anstey's. That's ridiculous. And then also Kitchen was within a tenth of Anstey. So like them executing that big line is essentially where races are going to be won and lost. And the fact that Deegan said he brain fogged and didn't really see it or consider it almost concerns me a little bit, because it's like, well, you've got to see that. And ultimately, that's where Anstey made his passes. So maybe Deegan is third or even second if he's nailing that every lap because he's moving through a little quicker.
Well, Deegan is obviously the elephant in the room in this situation because, I mean, many and most people, I think, still believe that he is the favorite in this class and probably should win a lot of these races. But he had, an up and down evening and ends up fourth. He probably was an extra lap away from the podium, maybe, let's say, but, you only get 15 plus 1 to make it happen, and he didn't. Did better this opener than he did in the past, and he's had horrific openers and still fought back to be in championship fights, so obviously nothing lost there. But how does this play out? Their teammates, they seem to get on well, but Deegan clearly has had no holds barred in the past with, ruffling feathers once he has a championship fight or championship rival of any kind, and I don't think he'll hold back against Max. So how do you think that factors into what Max will go through in the next handful of weeks?
Well, first of all, going back, I agree that logic says that Deegan would have had third with another lap, but that penultimate lap was messy. Mistaking the sand, mistaking the rhythm, mistaking the whoops. So maybe if that trend had continued, he's actually Rider D is pulling away from him. And that is also another part that I would be a little bit concerned about if I'm Deegan, or likewise if I'm in Kitchen or Anstey's camp. I'm looking at and I'm going, okay, this guy's human. And although we all know he's human, brilliant insight on this podcast, I think that a reminder of that fact is quite good for Kitchen and Anstey's confidence. Now, there will be weeks where Deegan is incredibly powerful, untouchable, and just amazing, and the Deegan that we all know he can be. But if there are going to be these weeks, then capitalizing on it in consistency is the secret recipe. And I think that, I don't think Kitchen's A1 was bad by any means. I think he performed very well. I think he came back and salvaged well. But I think the frustration would lie in the fact that he didn't capitalize on what was ultimately one of Deegan's bad nights. I think that's where the Kitchen result looms large. Of course, the positive end of that is he didn't lose too many points. So you can look at that either way.
Well, I agree with you, but that's obviously just looking at it from a very, what the racetrack elements of it will look like, of what they're able to accomplish from a speed standpoint and consistency. I more want to know what you think about Deegan versus Anstey is just in a championship fight amongst the two of them. Like, we've heard this, can he handle the heat from the other guys that are on Star Racing? Anstey's probably the one that can best handle it if Deegan starts playing games. So how do you feel about it?
I mean, their chairs are next to each other in the locker room at Star, at the facility. So there's that. And as dumb as it is, you watch the broadcast, you see Deegan actually ride up to Anstey and give him a fist bump, which Deegan doesn't just do that with his competitors. So I think that points to the respect that you alluded to. But at some point, you've got to think it's going to come, isn't it? Right? I mean, it does come in any form.
I think so.
I think the only way it doesn't is if I could see, like, let's say we get to Houston, Anstey still has a red plate, but I could see Deegan being so preoccupied with the sniping with Levi that Anstey's almost left to his own devices and forgotten. I think the Anstey or the Deegan-Anstey rivalry, or whatever you want to call it, will only kickstart if Kitchen goes out or drops back in points, essentially is rendered a non-factor. I think that's when Deegan would turn his attention to Anstey. But as of now, I think Kitchen is the one with the main target on his back, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it must be said, look, press day riding on Friday, it's a bunch of shenanigans, but they did spend the entire first lap of press riding roosting each other and rolling through rhythm sections together, and Deegan whipped his bike one way and roosted Kitchen, and Kitchen went down the backside of a jump. So they're still obviously thinking of each other. They seem to both stay away from each other quite a bit during qualifying, and then we never got a chance to see them in the night show locking bars of any kind, but it has to be coming with those two. So that plays into Anstey's hands huge if they're going to keep focusing on each other.
Let me ask you this. There was a lot of talk pre-A1 about Deegan, of course, being the favourite, and Kitchen and Anstey almost being inseparable in the pre-season power rankings. Does the way Anaheim 1 played out change or reinforce any of your opinions about the Anstey-Kitchen dynamic specifically?
No, I mean, I think that Levi he crashed in turn 1, and he got all the way back to 6th, and he was fastest in qualifying. He looked really good and comfortable on that track. And you can't forget that, like, he started East last year not great and then won the second round. Now, circumstances be damned. He probably shouldn't have won the second round, but he did. And he looked good at Detroit last year. And I think that he only gets better. Like, even if you go back to his RJ title fight year, it started slow. He won, started picking it up, had the best race of his life at Seattle that one time. I think that the engine is just getting going, and to see it be that strong already from first down in the first corner to 6th, I think this weekend he can just go right out there and maybe even win.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that, but specifically, again, you're ranking Kitchen above Anstey in the title ranks still, or this has made it?
Yeah, 2A, 2B. I don't know that I necessarily put Deegan way above them anymore after the way
so
that
would be the change then.
Yeah, like I knocked Deegan down slightly, but I do still think he is going to win this championship just because of a myriad of circumstances that could play out, and I think he still is the best racer once the gate drops. But he needs to clean up a couple things. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and that is the way it has gone the last few years as well. So it's not exactly a surprise, but critically, it's the same story with Kitchen and Anstey. So what's going to be the lesser evil, I guess, is the answer to this title question.
Are they all three on the box in San Diego?
Well, tough go for those of us in the room who predicted that unless there's a disaster, it will be Anstey, Kitchen, and Deegan in some order on all of the podiums. A tough start to the season.
I mean, Deegan had a horrible start and Kitchen crashed in the first corner. If you really want to get semantics with this, you could claim that.
Okay, so you're making me feel better. But yeah, I would think that would be the podium this weekend. And again, I think we said this pre-season, the path to this championship is podium every single week. And I think that's become clear after Anaheim 1, because Anstey has a nice advantage by just collecting a trophy.
Yeah, just being there every week, getting good starts, and just doing the deed. All right, so we'll see what Max Anstey's championship product looks like in the next few weeks. Let me tell you guys about Partzilla and the PRMX Blaster Power Kawasaki race team. Rocket on board with them this year as well. Cade Clayson and Mitchell Harrison obviously holding it down in the 450s. Our guy Cade did not make the main this week, but Mitchell Harrison carrying the Kawasaki flag as he does. One Kawasaki misses and the other one hits, and it always seems to land on Mitchell Harrison's shoulders. Gets into the main rides well. How about, Chambers and Anthony Bourdon? Chambers was laying on the track for 3 minutes and still raced, so that's good news, I guess. And then Bourdon crashed early in the main event, I think, if I remember right, and then had to fight his way forward. But looked good for only 4 days on the bike.
Yep. Who knew the PR in PRMX stood for personal record for number of crashes in one day? Because there were a fair amount. And equally, I have to say that on press day, I was impressed by the look of PRMX. Their bikes have quite a lot of black in the graphics and whatever gear they're wearing. The black was used on press day, and it was nice symphony between gear and bike, and the look worked, to be honest. It really worked. And PRMX decided to say, fuck it, and come out on race day with all kinds of hippie colours. We went from, hey, let's run the really nice plain black gear to let's see how many colours we can get on one gear set. So if I had to make one personal request moving forward, neutral colours. And let's work on those fonts on those jerseys, because it's a great look. It can be a great look. The font on the jersey does need some work, though. It looks like William Shakespeare himself came out and designed the back of the jerseys. And this has been my TED Talk.
Yeah. Well, very rainbow sherbet type gear, as you mentioned. I mean, Q1. Listen, I mean, I love Jack, and I'll get to know Anthony a little bit better this year, but every time we looked up, one of them was down. Jack crashed twice. Anthony tipped over, I think, twice. Definitely was down once after the tunnel. And you would be like, is that a PC? Or nope, it's PRMX again.
Well, and let's not forget, Chambers in the last corner of the LCQ came absolutely firing into that last corner, and I can't remember who was fourth, but if he hit that poor soul, he would probably still be in orbit now.
Yeah, I don't remember who was
Camparisi?
fourth.
No?
Jorgensen?
No,
maybe Camparisi.
Jorgensen had a terrible day. Also, can we talk about who...
Jorgensen made the main, though.
Well, I guess terrible day, great end. Can we talk about who PRMX have on the East Coast?
Yeah, can we spill those beans?
Yeah, I think we can, can't we?
All right, go for it.
Or should
Luke.
we just tease?
You could tease.
Let's just say that this rider will bring a lot of clout to the team, and they'll probably be looking to make good use of that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good, Big Lou.
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Partzilla.com is the premier OEM parts dealer and distributor. They sell OEM parts for Honda, Kawasaki, Polaris, Can-Am, Suzuki, Arctic Cat, Sea-Doo, Ski-Doo, and Yamaha motorcycles, ATVs, PWCs, and snowmobiles. Visit Partzilla.com to see their extensive line of parts and accessories, and hang tight to the show every week where Big Lou will bring his undertones into the podcast every week of, what do you call that, a riddle?
No, we were doing it at one point, weren't we? Cryptic clues.
Cryptic clues?
But I don't know how we would make that a weekly segment.
Big Lou's clues?
That's Lose Clues.
Blues Clues?
Maybe too close to being sued by whoever owned Blues Clues trademark.
Yeah.
But no, I wish we could do that every week, but I don't know what we would have to hint at. Look out for more, I guess.
Okay. All right. We've waited 37 minutes into this podcast before it's time. It's Prado Pod time. We got to talk about him. Jorge Prado, after the weirdest outdoor season maybe of all time on a Kawasaki that he did not like, that ends with a fractured contract after 1 of 3 years and a lot of money being forked over in many different directions, lands back with Red Bull KTM, spends a whole offseason at Baker's, podium's A1. Sure, we all had that. No problem. I don't know what is happening in this sport anymore, Big Lou.
Yeah, and I don't even know how I feel about this. Am I surprised? I don't feel like I'm bowled over like I should be, but I should be, and I don't know. And I have to say, my Anaheim 1 vibes really kicked in when he won that heat race, because that was the moment where it was like, oh, anything can happen. Like, we're back, 2026 Supercross, who knows? I mean, who had Prado leading a Ducati in the first heat race of the year? Imagine if you'd predicted that 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, look, your discussion about surprise, I'm not surprised he got third, but that's only because I saw how good he looked all day. If he was not very good all day and got third, I think we would all be like, what the hell? But he looked so good in qualifying. Like, I tweeted this probably 2 or 3 different times where I'm like, you guys, if you're not able to see Prado at home right now, I don't know who they're watching on the broadcast, he looked good. He was blitzing whoops. No problem. In fact, better than a lot of guys that I would say are good at blitzing whoops. He was tripling onto the rhythm section out of the home plate turn pretty easily. He was one of a handful of guys tripling after the tunnel, like doing big supercross lines and looking really comfortable doing it. Like at no point was I like,
pushing through rhythms.
Yeah, pushing through rhythms. He looked well in control. He looked comfortable. He, to me, also in the main event, looked like he was totally able to ride the pace that was comfortable to him for 20 minutes. And whether that was third or ninth or whatever, I think he was going to be okay with it. And it ends up third. But he didn't like let the moment get too big or ride out of his head or do anything crazy. He looked the part. And that is maybe the most impressive thing to me. Kawasaki breakup and going back to KTM aside, that the fact that he's this good at Supercross in only his 7th start is unbelievable.
Yes. And there are so many different ways to go with this that I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to rattle off a few. First of all, you cannot rule out that this could have happened on a Kawasaki last year in Supercross. I believe. He had 12 days on the bike all off season. He still came out at A1 and was second in the first heat race behind Chase. So one position worse than the heat race this year, if you want to break it down like that. And that was with limited prep. So maybe if he had had a full off season on the Kawasaki, A1 would have played out in a similar realm of success as this year. And if not A1, at least without the A2 injury, maybe he would have built to this and we would have been calling Prado's Supercross season with a Kawasaki a massive success story. Because you've got to remember, whether you're Kawasaki or KTM, it's much easier to achieve success with Prado in Supercross because the canvas is so blank. Outdoors, it's win or we're fucked. Supercross, you can celebrate anywhere in the top 10, really. And I think that Kawasaki missed out on the benefit of that, let's say. They only really competed with Prado where it was win or get destroyed, I guess you'd say. I don't even know what the other term for that would be. So you can't rule out that possibility. And Prado did like the bike in Supercross. And to admit a thing or two, talking to Prado off the record last year, I said to him many a time in outdoors, but you liked the bike in Supercross. And at one point he did say to me, yeah, but also I don't really know what a good Supercross bike is. I've not ridden a ton. So now I would be curious to know, with the time on the KTM, does he still like the Kawasaki in Supercross, or has that changed? We'll never get an answer to that because he's not allowed to talk about it due to the fallout of his contract. So that would be my biggest takeaway, purely in the sense of don't just act like this looks terribly bad on Kawasaki. And I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, well, really, again, like I'm not trying to factor in too much the bike changes into this, which Jorge will, I think, probably go to his grave saying how much better the KTM is for him, and that's fine. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. Does this more validate everything Prado was actually saying about how difficult of a time he was having on the Kawasaki, or more lay into a detriment to how bad it was that he gave up so much? Like, he's so good that now in 7 races he can podium a Supercross. He should have been able to ride that bike that's in winners take all and get a top 5 outdoors, but it did never really seem to get that trend going on a Kawasaki. So I feel like that's the lasting impact that people are always going to remember, is that like he did give up on the Kawasaki. He could have been much better, but he kind of gave up. But then on the flip side, he kept saying, well, I'm so uncomfortable in everything that I should be winning, and this is just terrible, so this is why I'm giving up, kind of. I don't know which one it validates more.
Honestly, I kind of want to say neither, just because with Prado specifically, Supercross is so different to outdoors.
Yeah, but this just proved his skill set. Like, he's this good and talented of a rider. On a technical standpoint, he is elite.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I have no questions about outdoors now. I need to see nothing else. Prado's going to be really, really, really good outdoors. So, yep, sign me up for that. I'm convinced, and yeah, thank you for coming. But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it was so good, and it should have been this good because Prado is a phenomenal rider, one of the greatest riders of all time. And I know it's going to anger people to hear that because there is a lot of disdain out there for him, but that is just the fact of the matter. He is, and always has been, this level. 2025 was a blip, but I said it on the Vital MX podcast. 2022 was a similar blip in MXGP. He was so unhappy with the bike. Honestly, he was teary-eyed at points. He was that unhappy with the gas. He won one GP in what was MXGP's weakest field in the last decade, let's say, and it was terrible. It was terrible, absolutely terrible, by Prado standards. But he came back the next year, a la Anaheim 1 2026. He came back in 2023 and dominated, won the World Championship handedly, and left no doubt of who he is. So that confirms that when things aren't, and I said this a million times last year, I don't think he's a great rider at working with what he's got. I think he needs to be in a window to hit his potential. I don't think he's just going to go out there and let it all hang out and kind of fill the cracks of what the bike isn't doing. I think this reinforces that again. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a lot. Great to see, great for the sport, great for Jorge, great for KTM. I don't think, even if you absolutely hate Jorge's guts, I don't see how you can look at this and go, fuck this is bad. This is great for all of us. We're all winners in this situation, because now Prado is an incredible story to follow. Equally, I think it's important to state, and I'm rambling now, I think it's important to state that he was very clear, steadfast post-race, that this was ahead of his expectations. So, yes. If he gets ninth in San Diego, that does not give everyone license to saying, it was a fluke, look how shit he is now. Ninth would actually be now his third best Supercross result. So this doesn't mean that now if he isn't in the top 5, you can go back to criticising him and calling him a clown and whatever else. But this was a good indicator of what he is capable of. And I would like to believe, I don't know if I can say this honestly, but I would like to believe that I never lost sight of that. But maybe I did.
I think I lost sight of the fact that he could mentally find the capacity to compete here. I don't know whether it was, his own blockage with how he felt on the bike or what have you, but I mean, last year was a disaster, straight up. And I hope one day he's able to kind of admit that and realize it. And maybe he won't. And maybe that's just the confidence that it takes to be elite at this level. But to pull yourself out of whatever that was and podium right away again just shows that, yeah, he is elite. Like, he is technically one of the best riders in the world. He got a podium. I don't even know. I would not have said it 17 rounds of Supercross aside from like maybe a mud race. He would have got a podium this year, and he gets it at the first race. Insane.
Yeah, pack it up. He cannot race another Supercross this year. I'm good. I've seen all I need to see. It really is proof of concept. And it's crazy to talk about Prado as if he's some sort of pitch, but that was kind of where we got to with him. He was a concept in America. He was an idea. It was nothing more than that. And now, I mean, Kawasaki probably wouldn't want to admit this now, but Steve has mentioned it on multiple podcasts that Kawasaki told him at the start of Supercross last year that Prado will be winning, I think, either 26 or 27, they said, one of the following years of his Kawi contract. And Steve kind of poo-pooed that. But credit to Kawasaki, because they also clearly saw what has materialized. Yeah. So I don't want this to just be a Prado rules. Well, now we all talk shit on Kawasaki? Okay, let's go over here. I think there's a way where Prado's result can be positive for all involved in this web of deceit, pain, and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And success now.
Well, I mean, the aesthetics for Cowie, like, brutal, because Marchbanks doesn't make the main of his own volition, in my opinion. And then, Chase has a so-so night. But I agree with you. I don't look at this as a Cowie KTM issue or anything along those lines. I think it was just a Jorge not being happy situation. And now he's happy and things are going swimmingly. And maybe they'll keep going swimmingly. I don't know. But
yeah, and I mean, I don't think I should say too much here, but this does happen. Like, there was a rider who missed a lot of a year with injury in the last decade, and he's openly said, not openly, behind closed doors, he's said multiple times, I'm glad I didn't have to race that year because that bike looked terrible. Like,
yeah.
So this does happen where great, phenomenal riders are just like, yeah, this isn't working for me. This wouldn't be good for me. So And equally, I said this on the Vital Pod, I know it's tough for anyone to believe, and I think it takes a lot for us all to push ourselves to this point, but there is a world where everyone wins in this situation. Kawasaki, Chase, KTM, and Prado. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. I don't believe that it is or should ever be there can only be one winner.
No, I agree with you. I don't think there will be, because I think that outdoors this year, to me at least, just based on this ride alone, we should be pretty high on how Jorge is going to do outdoors, and Chase should be a championship contender. So maybe they're both in the fight outdoors, and this is just awesome across the board.
Yeah, maybe Chase is the Supercross champion and Prado is the outdoor champion, and everyone's high-fiving themselves. Two manufacturers that were championless in 25 450 wise are high-fiving, going, this has worked out brilliantly. I think we were guilty of this as well. Pre-season, there was a lot of Prado versus Chase, Kawasaki versus KTM. How is this all going to play out? And I think that now that there is some sort of proof in the pudding, I think that everyone can win, and it's fine. Because you know what? As disastrous as it was for Kawasaki, Chase was the fastest qualifier. He had some of the fastest sector times. So this is clearly going to work out for them as well. So they can leave here going, you know what? There were good parts, so we'll just build on those and happy days. Obviously, KTM's good parts are clear for all to see, so they don't need to be highlighted. I don't believe the Kawasaki were over there going, Prado's doing this, we're fucked, you know?
Yeah, right. They were just worried about their own riders, 100%. How much of this is A1 craziness?
Well, this is what I'm confused by, because leaving the stadium, I would have said a lot. But ultimately, Prado just rode around. It's not like there was a first-turn pile-up. It's not like the Heat, for instance, Coop and AP crashed in front of him. So, okay, if that happened in the main, you could point to it and say, yeah, whatever. You could say, perhaps, that Chase and Coop both had bad starts, and that was pivotal in Prado's result. But bad starts are a part of Supercross, as are the tip-overs that Chase and Coop had. And crucially, neither rider was ahead of Prado when that happened. So, I don't know, like, from my vantage point, Anderson and Hunter behind Prado had nothing for him. So,
yeah. You want to... Eventually, he pulled away from them a little bit, for sure. Yeah,
so if you want to look at the lap times and say Coop and Chase were faster, then fine. But that drops Prado to the fifth best guy on the night, and that's great. So I don't know.
No, I'm dumbfounded. Like, I would have, if he got 8th at A1, I'd be like, yeah, way to go. We're trending in a really good direction. But I watched him a lot on Saturday, and I'll tell you, he's a really good Supercross rider. And it's still blowing my wig back. Like, I just have this replaying in my head of him skimming the very top of those whoops. And granted, they were not that big, as you said. There's going to be more technical and difficult ones this year, and he'll maybe struggle in those. But the way that, like, we see so many guys come over from Europe, and that is a struggle point. Getting on top of the whoops, driving forward all the way through. He did that, no problem, 15 times in qualifying.
And I mean, I don't have the exact numbers on this, but in the main, Hunter started skimming on lap 1 or 2. Hunter started jumping on lap 1 or 2. Yeah. And Hunter is a great whoop rider. So if Prado can hold stronger than Hunter in that situation, again, that's a brilliant proof of concept. Perhaps it's just as simple as, and this rings true for Eli as well, maybe the new KTM shock and fork. Maybe that just gave them license to do that. I don't know. But what I do know is something that I don't know. And I do know that I don't know how the hell San Diego's going to go. Because if he finishes anywhere between... If he wins, I'd be surprised. Anywhere between 2nd and 14th, I'm good with.
Yeah. San Diego, for just reference point, does have 2 whoop sections, but they're one straightaway separated by a jump. So
yeah, no, the second set they'll just turn into a hop into the corner.
Yeah, like everyone's going to, exactly. They're going to
no one's
jump
skimming
out.
I mean, even if they're the biggest things in the world, you can skim 4 whoops quite easily.
Right. So it's 9 whoops into a table single, 5 whoops out. It's going to be, I mean, if you want to look at the semantics of A1, skimming whoops into a triple is harder than tripling into a set of whoops and skimming, because you're not carrying. 100%.
So, like, it wasn't, okay, they were smaller whoops, but the setup of the landscape wasn't overly easy. It didn't lend itself to Prado, you know? I think, honestly, this is the best way to put a bow on it. Hey, Lewis, what was Prado's weakness at A1? I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see one. There wasn't one that jumped off the page, right? Do you have an answer to that?
The only weakness I can see is that he clearly has good top end speed. He's going to have to build that into his repertoire for 20 minutes because he got dropped by 25 seconds to Ken Roczen and Eli Tomac. Now, okay, it's Ken Roczen and Eli Tomac. Of course, they should probably put 25 seconds on Jorge Prado. But most other races, I mean, I guess he's going to start up there every time, so this is a moot point. But some other races where he would start 5th, that 25 seconds turns into dropping back to 10th because there's a lot of guys that can get into that 25-second gap.
Yeah.
So maybe he just needs a little bit more of that consistency at a high level throughout the main event, but that's the only thing that I would knock down on him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, of course. And again, I'll say it. Yep, of course, put Coop and Chase in front of him at Anaheim 1 if all's going well. Of course. But he did seem to have the measure of Hunter and Anderson. So if he's going to be in the Hunter-Anderson group this year, call it a success. That in itself is a massive win for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, 3 guys behind him had better lap times, like in terms of their best lap time.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so.
Actually, not. Sorry. But no, what I was just looking at, Prado had a better average lap time than Hunter, a better average lap time than Anderson, a better average lap time than, well, Webb wouldn't really count, would it? Nor would Chase, because they had laps that were anomalies. But again, having a better average lap than Hunter and Anderson does tell you that this wasn't track position and holding strong. This was more than that. This was just doing laps.
Yep, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. This perfectly sums up Jorge Prado getting on the box at A1. But kudos to him, and I hope it keeps rolling like this. How great would it be if we're 5 rounds into this and somehow he's like got 2 or 3 podiums?
I feel like
ridiculous to say that now, which is insane.
I feel like Prado is escaping the island. You know, there were people shooting at him. It's a disaster, and he's got on a plane and he's taken off away from the island of death, and he's left me behind.
You're just on the island of death
because I don't know. I can't figure out if I'm. Depending on who you talk to, I'm the biggest Prado lover in the world. But crucially, depending on who else you talk to, I'm the biggest Prado hater in the world, which is brilliant. Because ultimately, what that brings you to is me being an unbiased journalist. And equally, I feel like Prado can vindicate himself and I can't. So brilliant. See you, Jorge. Maybe send some supplies to the island.
You can vindicate yourself. You'll get on Race Day Live next few weeks. And
let's talk about it quickly. There was one person in the pits who said that Prado and I conspired to take down Kawasaki. And then an hour later, after qualifying, someone else in the pits tapped me and went, Prado sure showed you, huh? And then I'm like, I don't know, man.
So you both conspired to make Kawasaki look bad, so you're that tight with Prado. But you also hate him so much from last year that now he's proved you wrong. Yep.
Yes.
Life is
and equally, the rider who I'm much better friends with, I would say, Chase, is now at Kawasaki, and I knew that from March time, so why would I destroy the team that Chase was going to? I would have wanted to lift them up. Well, I don't know, man.
Work on lifting them up this week.
I think, okay, my big prediction of the show, San Diego will be better for Kawasaki.
Well, I certainly hope so.
That's bold.
Hey, let's talk about the Tech Air MX. Alpinestars, of course, back in the show this year. The Tech Air MX uses a sophisticated activation algorithm designed specifically for rut sperms, jumps, and whoops, deploying instantly when it matters most. Maybe landing on another rider. That's when it matters the most. It's a fully autonomous airbag built into a compact chest protector offering CE Level 1 protection on the chest and back. And when deployed, 4 times the back protection of passive armor alone. With multiple riding models and unrivaled upper body coverage, Tech Air MX is the next level protection for the toughest sport on the planet. And yeah, proof in the pudding. I don't think there's a better case study right there than someone falling 4 stories out of the sky onto their head and back and breaking 1 wing bone in their back.
Yep, there is a moment in history with every product concept where you point to the moment where that took off, and this is it. So you don't really need to say anything else because Alpinestars Tech Air MX has just had its moment, and that'll become a reference point in presentations and seminars for maybe 100 years.
Yeah. Do you think anybody that was maybe on the fence about running it runs it now?
Well, I don't know, because you hear it's heavy, so it'll be heavy everywhere. But you also hear it's hot, and I wonder if the heat really matters in Supercross. Outdoors, obviously, you can see that being a problem, but I wonder how much of a problem it is comparatively in Supercross.
Well, I wonder if guys will run it in Supercross now and then not outdoors, because like Supercross, I don't know, maybe more chance of chaos like that happening.
Obviously, you can't see it. Like, you can't see the logo. So if you're a rider, let's say you're Kenny or Prado. Let's bring this back to Prado. Why not? I wonder if your opposing gear company would be like, no, you can't wear that. Because even though you can't see it, when it inflates, everyone would know you're wearing an Alpinestars product, so you can't wear that, you know? Or if they'd be like, yeah, sure, no one can see it. No one cares. Good question for this weekend. Good question for this weekend.
I can see gear companies 100% saying no.
Yeah, so can I.
But if you're an athlete, your argument's perfectly valuable, in my opinion, of what they can't see it. If it goes off and it saves me and I'm racing in your gear next week, would you rather that or me being on the couch for 6 months? Like, I don't know how you could fight that.
Let me just put on a Tech Air MX as I make one final point on Prado. I tweeted this, but I do believe it's a very good fact. Prado landed on the podium in his 7th 450SX start. It took Tomac 9 and Chase 7. So suddenly that would tell you that Prado's right on track. And how quickly the narrative can turn.
Oh my gosh, dude. All right, Prado corner done.
Hold on. When I was fishing for those numbers, I was quite surprised. Webb did it in his 5th 450 start, which is surprising purely because we all look back on his first Yamaha stint as such a disaster that I would have thought it took longer. I think it was Oakland from memory.
Oakland, yeah, which I think it was like mixed conditions, not like a mud race, but wet-ish, if I remember right. And he got.
I think it was rutty. Let's say.
Well, yeah, which he excels in that to the umpth degree. But I just remember it being a little bit of an outlier, and it proved to be that case because he was not good the rest of the year, really. Well. So, anyway. We still have 2 topics that I pitched to you. Do we want to do both, or do you want to pick one? Or
remind me of both of them.
Just kind of talking about the format, which we already did, I guess.
We did that enough at the top. No one wants to hear us mull over that.
So here's the last one. Here's the last one. Who impressed you more at A1? Ryder DeFrancesco or Chance Hymas?
Well, thank God Prado wasn't on that list. That's really hard. That's really, really hard. What's your answer?
To me, I'll go Ryder D, but I think it's because in my own mind, I believe Chance could do this, even though we all knew, it didn't have as much time on the bike and, the ACL, and he was down in the dumps and he's got to rebuild and all this stuff like that. But I believe a lot in Chance Hymas's upside as an athlete, and I think that a second place doesn't sound crazy to me. But Ryder D still has only... he's had a 4th and a 5th last year. His Supercross results have been pretty mixed aside from that. And he leads half of a main event, gets 3rd. Like, I think that this is a big W for him in terms of confidence and building. And he even said post-race that he feels like if he's in this position the next couple of weeks, that maybe he can get it across the line in P1. And that's a big confidence boost to be able to feel that and experience that at round 1 of a championship.
Yeah, I will say, actually, I was quite surprised afterwards how happy and emotional Ryder D was, because he was so close to the podium last year. I felt like 99.9% of the fans and industry would have bet all their money on Ryder D having a podium in 2026 Supercross. It felt inevitable rather than a dream. So I felt like when he got on the box, in 3rd, no less, it would be more like, yep, box ticked, I want to win, so we're climbing in the direction we need to. I was quite surprised how taken aback he was by it. I mean, understandable. He missed all but 2 races of Supercross last year. The start to his pro career has been turbulent, to say the least. So understandable, but it still surprised me ever so slightly. And
I think it's good.
Equally, it surprised me that Hymas was quite emotional and kept referencing the fact that he thought his career was over. Both of those kind of caught me by surprise.
Yeah, but I can believe the Chance one because look at how emotional he was when he tore his ACL. Like, we got an insight that maybe he didn't want to be seen at High Point when he's laying on the table and Jet comes over to, try to console him, and he's just in tears, like just breaking down in tears because he knows this is yet another massive setback, and he just has gone through so many of those, and to get to a point where he feels like he can win again already probably has to be such a massive relief, such a huge weight off his shoulders of not knowing and all that stuff. So I could see that. And then with Ryder D, it's just like, as you said, he's been beaten down so many times to start his career, and he is the spinning image of example of what Adam Cianciarulo had to go through in his career, which is he was the most highly touted amateur, as high as it gets. Everybody thinks he's going to be the next best thing, and AC started better than Ryder D, but still had to go through so many depths and tumultuous situations to get back to winning or even close to that. That's what Ryder D lived through as well. Like, just, am I ever going to be that good? Am I going to be the potential that people have strapped to my shoulder since I was 6? I don't know. And now to kind of have a little glimpse in it being a reality potentially is also got to be just an incredible feeling.
Do you think that's a very good point? I'd never made the AC comparison, and I don't know why more people hadn't. Do you think it's because a lot of people just wrote him off immediately, whereas AC, because it started on such a high, it was always expected he'd get back there, whereas I feel like Ryder D's fades outdoors when he went pro and stuff like that, maybe a lot of people just went, yeah, this is never going to work, moving on.
I think that the difference a little bit with AC and Ryder D is that AC's early success came at a time when the phenoms kind of always did hit a little bit. And so to a degree, you would have just assumed that it would get back to that point. But Ryder D is in this time right now where there are so many kids that come out of Loretta's with titles and pedigree that are done in 3 years, sometimes less. Matt LeBlanc raced 1 season of outdoors and he's done. Like, guys like that are becoming too much of the norm, and I feel like it's easy if you're Ryder D to see that happening around you and just think, man, is that going to be me? Like, am I going to go through too many injuries to just never get the ball rolling with this? So that's why I feel like, in a way, it almost feels like it means or should mean more when he gets to that step of the podium and now maybe the step of actually winning a race, because he probably pulled himself from a mental depth that a lot of guys in his position never really had to deal with.
Yeah, all fair points. And I will say, hat tip to everyone at One Industries, because Ryder D did get lit kit in my mind. I really liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
Snow Leopard.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, I don't know what Leatt is going to have to say about that, because remember, for the longest time, I believed that Snow Leopard was one of their signature South Africa lines. I never answered your question, and it's still hard for me, because it's hard for me. But I will... Oh, it's hard for me. Because I could have seen both being on the podium at A1, especially the way it played out with Kitchen and Deegan's bad starts. So I will go... The rider who surprised me the most was Hymas, and that's less so on the main event, but more so just from press day. He looked spicy, he looked racy, and that sticks out with me. I mean, Ryder D did as well, but I kind of expected it from Ryder D more, so therefore maybe Hymas was a surprise.
Do either of them, like we just talked about, the Deegan, Kitchen, Anstey trio, likely still being, you know, the top, the guys that should podium on a regular basis, did seeing the way that Hymas or Ryder D competed and what they brought to the table at round one give you any inclination that they might more consistently be there than we expected?
I mean, call a spade a spade. Anstey dropped them both. So, and I've got to think that Kitchen and Deegan are in Anstey's realm, goes without saying. So that means that all of them would have dropped them in 4th or 5th place. So I don't know if it really changes. I mean, I still believe that Ryder D can win a race. I still believe Ryder D will have 3 or 4 podiums. Okay, I'll now say exactly the same for Hymas. I'll still pair them quite close together. But I am still of the belief as well that it's going to be tough, just because I do believe that a speed advantage goes to Anstey, Deegan, Kitchen.
I can get on board with that. I mean, I don't want to say that this is a weirdo A1, but I have to see it again to not believe that, like, just Ryder D getting out front and the chaos ensuing behind him helped.
Yeah.
Like, Anstey took a few laps to get there. Ryder D had some breathing space. He could control the pace for a little while. Then it seemed like when Max got to him, things started coming kind of fast, a little bit like, I was leading this race, and I still have to try to hold on for a podium. And he settled well. I mean, as you said, Deegan's penultimate lap was weird. A lot of mistakes. But Ryder D did a pretty good job of stabilizing and not allowing that train to keep coming. Like, he really did a good job to keep Hymas relatively close, stay in third place the whole distance of the race. And for a guy that has never had a podium, like, that's an experienced approach to it instead of the alternate, which is freaking out and cartwheeling.
Yeah, and as was clear after the race, clearly a weight lifted, and without that weight, who knows what he can now go on to. And it has to be said, a real bright light for Husqvarna on an otherwise terrible night. And weirdly, I feel like Husqvarna have had a few of those A1s, 450 class specifically. Weird.
And it seems like maybe since Anderson, nothing has really ever seemed to go that good for them at the opener.
Well, let's not forget, Malcolm cartwheeled in the heat, I want to say, at A1 last year. Or was that in the main? Out of the sand section, remember?
Yep. Well, 2 years ago before that, he led most of the main event and then cartwheeled in third place. Yeah,
that was 23. So what happened in 24? Is there that's the part of the puzzle we're missing. That's okay. I completely forgot about the 23 one. That is a weird run for Malcolm at A1. I mean, this does not belong in the same category as the other two, because the other two were straight up crashes. This was more a racing incident. But still, that's bad luck at A1.
Yeah, and then Hampshire just, I don't know, man. I mean, he got helped to the ground by Anderson, so that didn't do him any favors. But overall, not really good overall day. Like, just kind of invisible in a way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would certainly agree.
All right. Well, I think Ryder D was my standout versus Hymas, but I think both of them had tremendous opening rounds, and kudos to them for both getting onto the box when obviously it meant a lot. Anything else we should discuss from A1 before we head to San Diego, Big Lou?
No, which is incredibly rare, so I look forward to finding out.
Oh, boy.
I'll
let you go. I'll let you go take that call. Big thanks to Leatt, Namura, Partzilla, Alpinestars for backing the show, as well as you guys at home for tuning in every single week. We will be back after San Diego to see if anything we just talked about comes true, or if a whole different set of guys get up front and battle for the wins in San Diego. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.